Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K,
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Stanley pour les Canadiens, le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Happy Tuesday, everyone. Happy Tuesday night, that is, for all those expecting Tony Marinaro. He's on vacation. So I'm taking some shows off his shoulders for the next few days, weeks, whatever it may be. I was on twice last week. You got me once this week only, just Tuesday. So we're going to make the best of it. All right. The Sick Podcast brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. They've been named by Deloitte and CIBC of one of Canada's best managed companies, the country's leading business award recognizing innovative and world-class companies. The best managed Canadian companies designation fuels Energy's purpose of creating progress for our customers, our employees, and our communities. Join a winning team and check out Energy's career page for available opportunities. We're also brought to you by Playground, open 24/7. Drinks are always free when you play, and over 600 machines, daily promotions, including Bust the Bank Pirate Edition with a $100,000 weekly top prize every Sunday and a $1 million top prize at the grand finale on September 10th. Located just over the Mercier Bridge, only minutes away from downtown Montreal. Playground. Brewed in Quebec and a winner of a dozen international awards, Tibi offers quality microbrewery beers made with premium ingredients for everyone's taste. Tibi, embrace your true nature. And of course, by Murphy Clinic, who are an aesthetic clinic specializing in medical aesthetic care. They offer permanent laser hair removal as well as a wide range of treatments for skin problems such as acne, rosacea, fine lines, and more. They currently have two clinics, one located in Montreal's Shop Angus and our second one on the North Shore in Terrebonne. They're also opening soon in Quebec City. Visit murphyclinic.ca or on Instagram at Murphy Clinic. Okay, so Tony had Monday's regular guest, Eric Engels, yesterday. Good to see Eric back on the program. They spoke about when's the rebuild over? People are getting impatient. When can we say that this thing is done? Lots of interesting bits in there. I enjoyed that podcast quite a bit. So we're going to kind of do a part 2-ish to that, to yesterday's podcast today with my regular guest on Fridays, but he was kind enough to join me on Tuesday. Once again, Mr. Stu Cowan of the Montreal Gazette. Stu, how are we doing?
I'm doing very well. Hot like everybody else, but doing pretty good apart from that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I forgot to mention, I hope everyone out there is staying cool somehow. Stu, I did something very dumb yesterday. I decided to go on a 10-kilometer run.
Oh,
I had never
to talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. I had never sweat so much in my entire life. And the worst part about it was my plan was when I got home, I was going to run to my girlfriend's house. She was going to drive me home. And then so I could change into a bathing suit, drive to hers, jump in her pool. I get to her house. She goes, "Hey, change of plans. My grandparents are over. We're just going to sit and talk." And I was very happy to talk to her grandparents, but I looked and smelled horrible as I was sitting there. So that was my day yesterday. So how are you dealing with this heat?
Well, I took my dog for a walk very early this morning before the heat got too bad, and it was still really hot. I got a black lab, so being a black furry dog on a day like this is the best thing. But I got home, my t-shirt was soaked, but I'm lucky I have a pool in the backyard here, so I was able to jump in and cool off.
Well, there you go. And, like we always say, pre-post show, whenever we talk, we're like, oh, we can't complain about the weather. Mm-hmm. But like when it gets to like 40 degrees with humidity and it's to the point where it's unenjoyable to be outside, that's where I don't really complain, but I'm not going to not complain about it.
And it's September. It's not July.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot easier to palate these days in July and August, but like September, it's like, can you give us a little bit of relief? Just a little bit.
I feel really sorry for the kids back in school and schools that aren't air conditioned, and there's quite a few of them that aren't.
Oh yeah. I remember those days actually.
Yeah.
Sitting in an unair conditioned gym writing exams, just already sweating from nerves and then from the heat too. All right. So yesterday, Tony and Eric spoke about what the Canadiens need to do to officially declare this, or what are the things that need to happen to declare this rebuild over. One thing that I found interesting was there was no real, they spoke a lot about the young core and possible additions, how those additions are going to be made. There's one thing that I found they didn't talk about, and that was the subtractions that need to be made, because frankly, there are a lot of bad contracts on this team. Kent Hughes, Jeff Gordon, they've done a fantastic job of offloading many of them, but the toughest ones that remain at the top are Gallagher, Josh Anderson, who that's up for debate if that's a bad contract. A lot of Josh Anderson. Then there's Christian Dvorak, who has less term, Yoel Armia, who has less term, Jake Allen, less term as well. Do you think that they can progress and really compete with those players, or the majority of those players on the roster, or do at least 3 out of 5 of those names have to be gone?
Well, the thing is, every team in the NHL has bad contracts, right? Every team. You go down and look at cap friendly. Every team has contracts that they wish they could get rid of. The Canadiens were able to get rid of quite a few of them. And Ken Hughes has done a good job of that since he came over, but he's not going to get rid of all of them. But the ones that he's left with, Brendan Gallagher, at $6.5 million. I haven't totally given up on Gallagher yet, because last season he was playing on a broken ankle, which is really, it's typical Brendan Gallagher to try and play on a broken ankle. So I want to see him healthy with a long break and see what he can do. I don't think he can be a 30-goal scorer again, but he might be able to score 20. And the thing with Gallagher, the effort level is always going to be there. You're always going to get 100% out of him. The question is how much of 100% of Brendan Gallagher is there left. Josh Anderson, I've written, and I think I've said to you also, I would not have traded him. I think he's a player. The day you trade Josh Anderson is the day you start looking for another guy like Josh Anderson, a big guy who can go up and down the wing, who can, when the Canadiens went to the Stanley Cup final, one of the reasons they did is just the forechecking that Anderson was able to do with his big body and just making it miserable for the other team's defensemen going back to get the puck in their own end. Jake Allen, a veteran guy, great guy in the room, well-respected. They're big contracts, but they're not horrible guys to still have around. Dvorak's a guy that, they have an abundance of centers now. It'll be interesting to see if Kent Hughes is able to move him. But the main thing with this rebuild, the main word is patience. And it'll be interesting to see just how patient Canadiens fans are. New GMs take over, they talk about a 5-year plan. Well, the Canadiens have had 1 full year of this rebuild. When Hughes came in and Gordon came in the middle of the season before, it was a total mess. They took over. So we're 1 full year into a rebuild. So I think we're 3 years away from this team being where Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon wanted them to be when they took over. So again, just the patience is a virtue, and I think that's a saying that really impacts the Canadiens now. They don't need to really rush into doing much. I mean, Kent Hughes has done a lot of heavy lifting already, getting rid of some bad contracts and picking up more draft picks. So I think they're in a really good position as far as this rebuild goes. And again, it's just going to be interesting to see how patient fans are willing to be. And I think they will be patient because I think they see that there is a solid plan in place. With Mark Bergevin, it was a case of every year just making adjustments here and here, just hoping to get into the playoffs this year. Not really thinking about the future or worrying about the future. And now the plan is we're going to build gradually and slowly and hopefully be a team, as Kent Hughes said and Jeff Gordon said, that's not just competitive 1 year, but it's going to be competitive for many years in a row. And I think they're en route to that. And I think patience is going to be a key going forward.
Another key that I think is not even the team itself, but the teams that they're playing against, because the Atlantic Division is just absolutely loaded with amazing teams. So you have teams like Toronto, who probably are not going anywhere anytime soon. Ottawa's on the come up. Buffalo's on the come up. Detroit is a weird one. It's like we're not really in well position to compete, but we're trying to well position ourselves to do it. We're trying to kind of expedite that. Boston's an interesting one because that one with Patrice Bergeron out of the picture, that could go either way. It could finally be the year that everyone will be right when they say at the beginning of every season, this is the year that Boston misses the playoffs.
Yeah.
So Boston's a weird one, and Tampa Bay, I don't see them going anywhere anytime soon. So when that just popped into my head when you said like they're 3-4 years away. A lot can change in 3-4 years, and a lot can change with those teams.
Exactly. A lot of those teams, they're star players who are in their late 20s, early 30s. 4 years from now, are going to be in decline, like any player once they get over 30. So it's the case of, right now, this division and the conference they're in is that's why I don't think Canadiens make the playoffs this year. I think they'll be fun to watch. I think they'll be better than they were last year, especially if they can stay somewhat healthy. But when you look at the big picture, again, being patient, 3-4 years down the road, a lot can change with the Canadiens, and a lot can change with the teams that they'll be looking to catch up to. And, I've mentioned this before many times, the group of players, the key players that Kent Hughes is put together here, all 21, 22, 23 years old, 24 years old. They're all going to grow up together on and off the ice. And 4 years from now, they should be at their peak level or ready to peak together at the same time. And if you're rebuilding, that's something you want to have. You want to have your good players all to be at their prime at the same time. And that's what the Canadiens look like they're going to be. And they also have lots of draft picks. I know Eric mentioned that last night when he was on with Tony. There's 27 picks they have over the next 3 years. They're not going to use all those picks, but you can use some of those picks to package in deals, as Kent Hughes has already been able to do. We're talking about trades. The fact he was able to get rid of Mike Hoffman and not eat any of that contract. He did have to eat some of Jeff Petry's contract later, but it's patience and just an ability. As I said, the guys with the big contracts that, as you mentioned before, that Kent Hughes would probably like to move. It's not the worst thing in the world to still have them around because they're good guys in the room. The effort level is there. They want to be in Montreal. Brendan Gallagher loves Montreal, and Josh Anderson loves Montreal. Jake Allen likes being in Montreal, and that's huge. I think that's a big deal when you're trying to build a young rebuilding team. You want to have guys that are happy to be here, and those guys are happy to be here.
So simple question, just based off of projections. I think we're both on the same page. 3-4 years till you're actually legitimately competing within the division. And I agree with you. If you don't, Josh Anderson is a desirable player, and you're probably looking for another one. But just to play a little bit of devil's advocate, because they're 3-4 years away, and Josh Anderson only has 4 years, and apparently, according to Kent Hughes, very desirable. He had offers on the table for him. Because you mentioned playoffs and hit the forecheck in the playoffs. Like, is that really something the team needs right now? Like, I feel like they could move off of him and kind of sort of bank on, Uri Slavkovsky with his big frame, turn him into, a guy who could go up and down the ice like that. No?
Well, Anderson's also a leader on the team. He's one of the big leaders on this team. And Slavkovsky, last year didn't look like he was ready to play in the NHL. If Slavkovsky makes a dramatic improvement this year or next year and looks like he is ready to fill a similar role to what Josh Anderson has, then you're more likely to want to trade him. The thing is, in the rebuild, the Canes, last year was a lot of talk about how Canes should just tank and finish last, and some people are upset they didn't. But you don't want to let a losing culture get into your locker room, like what happened in Buffalo and what has happened in other teams. It's hard to get rid of it. You still want guys to be competing and trying to win games. And I think Josh Anderson gives you a better opportunity to win games at this point. And also, he's really improved as a player with Marty St. Louis and changed the way he plays. He's no longer just that guy who goes up and down the wing 100 miles an hour and goes to the net. Marty St. Louis taught him that it's not, you don't always have to go 100% out. Sometimes it's better to shift gears and change speeds and maybe not just go straight up and down, cut to the middle. And he's been working with them, and Anderson's very receptive to it. And St. Louis is doing the same thing with Brendan Gallagher, a similar type of guy, just up and down the wing. And that's the type of hockey the Canadiens played in the past, right? It was very simple. There wasn't a lot of creativity offensively, and Marty St. Louis wants more creativity offensively. So if he's got veteran guys that are willing to listen. They say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but if they're willing to learn a different way to play the game, and the guys in the Canadiens, all of them listen when Marty St. Louis speaks, and it makes sense, and they look at the game differently. And I think that's another reason why they're keeping him. And I think that's another reason why Slafkovsky wasn't sent down to Laval last year, or sent to the World Juniors. They wanted him to be around Marty St. Louis, and they wanted him to Marty to be able to work with them on a day-to-day basis during games, on practices, etc. So again, I mean, I've written it, I've said it many times. Josh Anderson, I wouldn't be in a rush to trade Josh Anderson. If you get an incredible offer for him, yeah, but I wouldn't be looking to just give him away. And I don't think Ken Hughes is. And again, it gets back to patience. Maybe they'll be better on if Josh Anderson does have a big year with Marty St. Louis this year and scores 30 goals or something. You're going to get a lot better offer for him next offseason than you will this offseason.
Do you agree with what Eric said when he said that he doesn't really, like a lot of people are, myself included, I put myself in this category, where he says like he doesn't expect the Canadiens in next offseason or in 2 off seasons, when really a lot of those contracts come off the books, to really drop the hammer in free agency and start throwing around cash? Or is that something that's going to be really they're banking on their internal guys becoming who they're supposed to be, and then should they need reinforcements, go fetch a guy through a trade?
Yeah, and it's interesting because I imagine you watched that video that Canadiens released recently, the behind the scenes at the draft.
Mm-hmm.
And Jeff Gordon, when he was talking at one point, said it's really hard to get talent. And he said, that free agency isn't the best way because you're getting old guys who make a lot of money and might be on the downside of their career. And he said the best way to get the talent is drafting or getting lucky. I mean, Raphael Harvey-Pinard, if Raphael Harvey-Pinard turns into a 25 or 30 goal scorer is like a 7th round draft pick, that's lucky, right? You got lucky with a draft pick. And so from listening to him talk then and with the patience, I don't think that's necessarily the route they're going to go through, just because you're bringing in older guys who make a lot of money, maybe on the downside of their career. You got to pick and choose your spots. There might be some free agents come available that are worth it. But I don't think that's their main focus. I think their focus is to keep these young guys, bring them along, and then those guys are going to make their money as they come along also. And the other thing I think they can't use is then that has been smart is giving, the Brendan Gallagher contract was a case of Marc Bergevin rewarding Brendan Gallagher for what he was, what he used to be, right? And Brendan Gallagher was underpaid when he made 30 goals. Brendan Gallagher's earned every single penny he's ever earned from the Canadiens with his effort level. But that contract was more, Brendan, you've been great for us for so many years. Here, we're going to reward you, even though you're going to be 36 or whatever, or 35 and that contract is over. Whereas with Cole Caulfield, it's like, okay, Cole, we believe in you, and we're going to pay you now because we're confident you can produce moving forward. And I think that's the way to do it. And then when the guys get older, like a Gallagher type guy, when they get older, then you try and move them and keep a younger sort of generational players coming in that are cheaper. And that was when when Gordon said that in the video, I was saying it's so true, because how many big free agent signings have really worked out? How many of those big sort of off-season guys that you sign have really worked out? And there's not all that many.
Yeah. It's hard to even think of. I mean, Panarin has been a great player in New York. You can't say that one really flopped. He's probably full value, but other than that,
look at
not
John
really.
John Tavares, Toronto at $11 million. Again, an older guy making a lot of money.
Yeah.
Patrick Kane. I don't think he even had an offer yet, but as Gordon said, you're giving a lot of money to older guys who are more likely on the downside of their career, and that's sort of what happened with Brendan Gallagher, right? When Bergevin signed him, he was an older guy who was on the sort of the downside of his career, and they gave him a lot of money, and that's one of the contracts that I'm sure Kent Hughes would like to move if he could, but especially with the season Gallagher had last year with a broken ankle and not producing, I mean, nobody's going to pick up that $6.5 million contract.
Yeah. You mentioned it. Let's talk about it quickly, because I spoke about it on Friday with producer Shane when he was my guest of the day. You mentioned the draft video. Great video for fans. Mm-hmm. Fans love that. They eat that up. And, as media members, when nothing's going on in the summer, we eat that up too.
Yeah.
So one thing I found very, very interesting that they decided to include was Jeff Gorton basically kind of sort of saying, that they redacted the name when he was talking about we could all put 2 and 2 together. He was kind of talking about Matvei Michkov, saying like, oh, you don't find talent like this. You got to draft that talent. Like, did you find that interesting that they decided to include that in there?
Yeah, well, I think because the entire scouting staff seemed to be on board with not taking him. I think that was the thing. And even at one point, Gorton says, I just want to make sure we get this right. Like, you guys are certain this is like, sometimes you take a chance. It's not worth taking a chance on this guy. And in that room, it looks like they didn't think it was worth taking a chance. So they went with Reinbacher instead, which is more of the safe pick in that position. And, like with all drafts, we'll find out moving forward if that was the right decision or not. But I see with Michkov in the KHL, he's been a healthy scratch, I believe, his first couple of games there.
Yeah.
So it's that the Russian factor, it factors in. I think it's going to get even more complicated as time goes on. So but it seems like from what the video anyway, that basically everybody in that room seemed to agree that it wasn't worth taking the risk by drafting Michkov.
I found it weird because like, as you saw the reaction when it happened. I mean, when Reinbacher got selected, it's no slight against him, but I just found with how controversial that was, kind of removing the honeymoon tag off of Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton. It was kind of that moment for them, and they flat out said they kind of made it seem like Jeff Gorton wanted Michkov, like he was ready. If it was his decision, that's kind of how I saw it.
I saw it as sort of, he was, as he said, so you need to take a risk sometime, and Michkov would have been a risk, and I guess he just wanted to, maybe in a way, if it doesn't work out, it makes Gorton look good, as he was the guy who was sort of saying, are you sure that it's not worth taking the risk on this guy? And for everybody else in the room to agree it wasn't. I guess that's the way he decided he was going to go. For me, I still like the Michkov thing. I still would have, if it was me, I would have taken Ryan Leonard. I think just because I think they need offense. I think he's sort of the Brady Tkachuk style of player and a big winger that could go up and down and score goals and bang and whatnot. I think he would have been a better player for the Canadiens at this point. But again, who knows? We'll see 3 years down the road, 4 years down the road, whether the Canadiens made the right decision taking Reinbacher, whether they made the wrong decision not taking Michkov or not taking Ryan Leonard. But yeah, in that video, it sort of just seemed that I guess they wanted to. I mean, it's part of marketing and PR, right? These videos, but I think it was part of just showing fans that they did look at Michkov. They did seriously look at him. The executive director of hockey operations asked this guy, "Are you sure this guy isn't worth taking the risk on?" And they came to the conclusion that he wasn't.
Yeah, I feel like I was maybe I'm diving a little too deep. Maybe I'm not, because in a fabricated video coming from the organization, it's one thing. Like, I feel like you can't read between the lines too much, but when you hear something in a press conference, that's when you can be like, okay, I feel like there's something there, because everything that was put in that video for a reason, obviously.
Yeah, and you go back when they first started at 24/7. I remember that infamous clip of Michel Therrien just chewing out PK Subban in the locker room. Subban basically saying to him, "What do you want? Tell me what you want me to do instead. Tell me." And Therrien did. He just kept screaming and yelling at him. And in hindsight, I'm sure the Canadiens regret that they let that get into the video, and I'm sure they're much more closely edited now. But the other thing that was interesting, I wrote a column, just finished writing a column about it. It's on hockeyinsideout.com now, is on Jacob Fowler and how the debate they had between a couple of scouts on why he should or shouldn't be the first goalie they select. And I found that was an interesting part of the video. And also the interview they had with Fowler. The kid just oozes confidence. And as a goalie, that's what you want. And one of the scouts saying this kid just wins everywhere he goes. Like, there might be other goalies with better technique or better whatnot, but this kid just everywhere he goes, he wins. And so that's a guy that's going to be interesting to watch when rookie camp starts up next week.
Yeah, they really made him seem like the darling of the video, of the draft. Gave him a lot of face time, and I was I liked seeing that, because it means they believe in him, and maybe he's the heir apparent to the crease. That's why they were pushing that.
The thing I thought watching it is he has the confidence a little bit of the cockiness too that I think Caden Primo is really missing. Like Caden Primo is such a quiet kid and such a reserved kid, and his problem, like in the AHL, he's great. In the NHL, it just seems like he's a deer in the headlights when he gets into the NHL, and maybe mentally the pressure or whatever it is, he just can't do it. So it's sort of they're two sort of extreme opposites in personalities. With Fowler, as I said, just he's really, really confident, sort of cocky kid, and to be a goalie in Montreal, you need to be that. I mean, Patrick Roy was that way. Carey Price is that way. It's one of the most pressure-packed positions in all of sports, and you got to be a little bit confident and a little bit cocky, I think, to succeed in that position.
Yeah, he's one that I'm very excited to see after that video came out. Again, just thought it was weird that they didn't push really. I mean, they pushed the scouts talking about Reinbacher, but they never pushed Reinbacher talking about hockey.
The part about him,
very odd.
Two little old ladies in line at the bank and a guy cut in front of that.
Yeah,
that was really weird. That was to me. They talk about that you only have 20 minutes with the interview with these kids, and I thought that was a really strange question. What would you do if a little old lady cut in front of a guy cut in front of two little old ladies and you in the line at a bank? I just thought that was a pretty bizarre question to ask when you're in such a limited time period.
Well, that's it, because clearly they used so much of the time, if not all, with Fowler just talking about shooters and talking about hockey, and they're getting the sense that he's a hockey junkie, hockey nerd, as they said, and then just with Reinbacher, it was just like, wait, what? Like, why aren't you asking him?
I actually rewound it and played it again. Like, what, did they ask him what I thought they asked him? It was just
exactly. Because I was working and kind of not watching, more listening, and and I just this part comes on and I'm just like, wait, did I miss something here? Like, what's going on right now? But yeah, so that was really interesting.
Yeah. But the thing about Reinbacher, the way he answered it, and it's what impressed me about him when he was at development camp, is that for a young kid coming to a new country from Austria, his English is very good, but it's still not his first language. All the negativity towards him after the Canadiens drafted him, the way he handled himself at the development camp, he was just really mature, really, really mature for an 18-year-old kid. I was thinking to myself, like, wow, I was really impressed by the way he handled himself when he was in the media scrums, and also the way he handled himself with that sort of bizarre question. Yeah. I think if I was that age, I might have started laughing. Really?
Well, I would have done one of those, because in certain situations, I have a very good poker face. Others that just really catch me by surprise. Yeah. I do kind of like you see in TV shows, where it's a little exaggerated, and you're like, what? I would have done probably you would have seen it on my face. I would have been like, what's going on here right now? But it was. But he
handled it. Yeah, he said whatever. What else are you gonna say?
Exactly. No, I would have let him go. I would have
kept no old ladies too, elbowed them in the head, and in their purse. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, hey, if he was, who did that? Ryan O'Byrne did that. So maybe he would have.
No, there's a whole story behind that story too. That was,
But yeah, so I mean, hey, I good on the Canadiens for coming out with something, because a lot of NFL teams, they release those videos, and it's really cool. Fans eat that up, and the NHL needs to do more of that.
Eat it up. I mean, I know when Chantal Maccabee took over her job as vice president of media relations, or the exact title, but she said that when she was a little girl, she fell in love with the Canadiens because of Guy Lafleur, and she had 50 of his autographs, and she used to be able to see him outside the Forum, and that's what. And she said, she wants fans to fall in love with today's players the way she fell in love with Guy Lafleur. And one of the ways of doing that is having more access to them. I mean, the Canadiens have sheltered players, and Cole Caulfield, when Chantal took over, she told him, be yourself. You're a funny kid. You have a good sense of humor. Be yourself with the media. Don't be afraid to just be so reserved and give the cliche answers all the time. And it's refreshing for somebody covering the team, because you can get a little bit better stuff out of these kids. But fans eat this stuff up. Fans, and especially in this city, here it is, September 5th, and it's 40 degrees Celsius outside, and it's end of summer, and we're talking Canadiens as we have been all summer. People can't get enough of this team. They want to know about these guys. They want to know what they're like off days. So they don't just want to know how many goals they scored or whatever. They want to know what these guys are like, what kind of people they are. And that's what makes fans fall in love with the players and fall in love with the team. And the NHL is behind other leagues when it comes to that. Other leagues understand that with the amount of access they get and players mic'd up and things like that. And they're not so afraid of everything that somebody's going to say something wrong or something controversial or something that's not out of the norm a little bit. So the NHL is way behind when it comes to stuff like that in marketing, and the Canadiens are one of the teams further behind in the NHL than other teams. But Chantal's done a good job since she took over of just trying to make the players a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more open and willing to be themselves more when they're dealing with the media or doing videos like these type of things that the Canadiens released.
I'm willing to bet there's going to be more stuff like this during the season. Like, for example, I mean, obviously, as everyone knows who's a regular listener to this podcast, I'm a massive Bengals fan, follow all their social media accounts and whatnot. Every week, they mic up one or two players, and then at the end of the game, they'll release a 2, 3, 4 minute video of just sound clips and stuff that happened during the game, their voice in it. Wouldn't be surprised if we saw that from the Canadiens this season, because
they should.
That stuff is gold. That is gold. People love that, including me. I watch the videos all the time. I think it's great.
Well, they had a thing on their Twitter account the other day from a golf tournament, and it was I'm trying to remember who it was, Jordan Harris and Mike Pizzetta golfing.
Yeah,
it was kind of funny. Right. Like one of them swung at the ball went about 3 feet, and the other one yells 4. But stuff like that, fans eat it up. They can't get enough of stuff about these Canadiens players.
Yeah, and as we mentioned, so do we, because it's. I never understood what was the reasoning behind wanting to strip away their personalities and just kind of make them these robots, and it's just. It's not what goes today.
One of the reasons PK was one of the most popular players the Canadiens have had in years and years and years is because they couldn't do that to him. No matter how much they tried to put him in and just be the good Canadian hockey boy and say all the cliches, PK was PK. And the fans loved it. And the triple low 5 with Carey Price, when they brought PK back to the Bell Center and had that night, the fans went crazy when they did it again. And to think the Canadiens actually outlawed that. Michel Therrien and Marc Bergevin wouldn't let them do the triple low 5 after victories, even though the fans loved it. Like the fans would stick around later after the game to watch them do it. And they were like, no, that can't happen. That's not good. And it's PK's personality is one of the reasons he was just so popular in this city, because Montrealers love that it's a vibrant city, and they like people with vibrant personalities, and PK had it, and they tried to knock it out of him, and they couldn't. And then the only way they could was to trade him.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you know what? Though, thankfully, those days are over, and the day of the new age athlete is in, because, I mean, this is the other thing with miking up players. It really doesn't, do anything to your team, because it's not like, it's when a reporter puts a microphone in front of a player and then they slip up and they give like a real juicy nugget. You got all the footage. You're controlling what you're putting out there. So I really hope we see more of that stuff, because I think it's great. I think that they should even start it with just mic them up during the red and white game. Just see how it goes. See the response.
Well, when that 24/7 came out, remember how popular that was? That was the first time.
Well, it was a weekly thing. I watched it all the time.
And then the thing with PK sort of backfired on them, and they got sort of cut back more and more after. They were edited more carefully, I guess, after that. But it's the video they did, the recent one they did, when they mentioned and the Canadiens select, and it was Carey Price and then David, and then they cut into Kent Hughes saying linebacker, and I thought they're not going to just ignore that. And then when they went to the table, they sort of had Price apologize to him, saying, I just sort of froze there and whatnot. But again, it's that behind the scenes stuff that fans can't get, and we in the media can't get. Like we're not sitting at the draft table. And I remember when they made the trade for Kirby Dach at the draft, and the conversation, they videotaped the conversation of Kent Hughes on the phone with Kirby Dach, telling them that they had acquired him and telling him, you're going to come, you're going to love the coach, you're going to get a chance to play, you're going to get a chance to perform. And from the media, it was great to get from the media standpoint too, because we can't hear what they're saying at the table. So that was it's good to see, and hopefully they continue to do more of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, and just on the last note, it's like I remember watching NFL drafts and whatever. Like always after the draft, they'll like during the draft, player gets picked. They're in the green room. They're on their phone right away. They're on the phone with someone, whether it be the coach of the team, their agent, somebody. They're talking to someone important. But you don't really get the inside. And I remember like. I forget which player the Bengals had drafted, and the coach called the player and was just like, "Hey, I just want to let you know, this is Zach Taylor from the Bengals, or so-and-so, this is Zach Taylor from the Bengals." And the guy literally said, "F off, you're prank calling me." Like he did, like that's awesome. I think that's great. Yeah. I think we need more of that. I think it's great.
The thing is, sports is entertainment, right? It's entertainment. That you're spending entertainment. When you go to the Bell Center, you're spending you want to be entertained. And PK entertained fans, and then the Canadiens got to the point they're playing a bland. Now they're playing an entertaining style of hockey, and this new management team understands that too. They've spoken about it. It's entertainment. You go to the Bell Center. Canadiens aren't going to win every game, but at least you want to be entertained when you go. You want to see Cole Caulfield score. Or it used to be you wanted to see PK score, or you wanted to see the 005. You wanted to see all that stuff. That's what you're paying to go to the game, to get the live experience. And I think. The Canadiens forgot that, and they seem to be, as I said, with new management team and including Chantal there now, they seem to be trying to bring that back a little bit more. And, I'm back in the days, before cell phones and that, in the early 90s when I was single and I was downtown a lot on Bishop Street or Crescent Street, you'd see the Canadiens out all the time. Like it was rare you went out on a Friday night or a Saturday night after the game, you'd see the guys come into the bars and they'd have a few drinks and they'd be around, and people saw them out and about. They don't do that now because it's everybody be taking cell phone pictures. All over the place that this guy was drinking last night or this guy had two, whatever. But, back then you felt there was more of I think fans had more of a connection to the players. You actually saw them when you went out. You don't see that anymore. Like, I'm not downtown like I used to be, but the players aren't hanging out at Sir Winston Churchill's like they used to be, or Deja Vu, which was one of my hangouts back in the day on Bishop Street. It just doesn't happen because it's just the social media has become they're too worried about what might happen social media wise if they're out having a good time in public.
Well, let's see if I'll get this right. Where they will be hanging out next Monday is, I'm going to take a stab. I don't know the golf course, but I'm going to take a stab because I think I'm probably pretty sure you probably know it. Laval-sur-le-Lac.
Yeah, same place.
Nailed
every
it.
year. I've never played the course. I've never been fortunate enough to play it. I've covered the tournament many years, but it is a spectacular golf course, and it's always a fun day. It's the unofficial start to the season. The weather's supposed to be nice. It's supposed to be like 21 and sunny and not 40 and blistering heat. But it's always a fun day. It's sort of it's the unofficial start to the season, and you get to see guys you haven't seen in 5 months or whatever it's been now, and interview guys again, and sort of get back into the start of a new season. So I think it's fun for the players. It's fun for us in the media also, to sort of get back into the daily groove of covering the team and covering the beat. So I'm really looking forward to it. It should be a lot of fun.
Hard to believe it's only 6 days away.
Yeah, and then the rookie camp starts on Wednesday, and then the regular training camp the next week, and then I think it's September 24th or 25th, something like that, the first preseason game. It's coming quick.
Yeah, and we here will be bringing you all the analysis, breaking it down, and giving hot takes as we usually do. Stu, thank you very much. Have a great rest of your week.
Okay, you too.
That was Stu Cowan. I'm Matt Ohayon. I'll be back next Monday breaking down with maybe Stu the opening, the Canadiens golf tournament. We'll see you then.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow The Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. Bittt. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.